Hello folks, it is the start of a brand new week. We will have some more advertisements for Minimaker coming on Wednesday, so make sure you look out for that so you can see my brand new models that I got put together for my nightly force. They're going to be coming to a tabletop near you very soon. Very happy with them. And yeah, a lot of you have been complimenting Minimaker on the models that have turned up or models that you've seen on their store, so make sure you give them some love and use the promo code Northern Exile down below to get yourself 10% off your order at checkout. Alright, cool. Let's jump in with our first Hobby Nightmare today, and it is from a Dark Angels player by the name of Denny. Denny has a very good, and do you guys suffer from this, right? I suffer from Legion indecision. Basically, I think every Space Marine Legion is cool, and I can very rarely choose one to either collect or to have my Space Marine chapters that I've written be descended from, right? I can't make up my mind, which is why now I'm writing several Space Marine chapters so I can have all of my cake and I can eat it too. And why also I've decided to collect Black Shields for Horus Heresy because they have rules now and I don't have to choose one or the other. But there we are. He says, "Hello, Mr. North, Northy E, Big D, whatever you like the most." All right. Long-time viewer here since my experience working with Games Workshop and the Titan Guy videos. Wow. Okay. Well done to you, sir, for sticking by the channel. Thank you very much for your patronage. I've had a mostly pleasant experience with the hobby, having minimal incidents, mostly because I don't get too many games in. I swear I'm not a nightmare, lol. Other than the occasional, media literate weirdo telling me I'm far-right leader junior because I paint toy soldiers. For the record, that's sarcastic paraphrasing. It's more like, absolutely alt-right because I lean right and I like Space Marines. Apologies for the sidetrack, I'll get on with it. This isn't so much of a nightmare as it is a lesson I learned after looking back at this game a few times. Alright, do you guys ever come across that? Because I've come across that a few times from people when they find out that I collect 40k. But they tend to think, oh no, especially when they're like, oh, what factions do you like? I remember when I was in the States and the girl I was with when I was over there, her mother, a very sweet woman, and she wanted to know about me and my hobbies, right? And when I was living in their house, I would paint models. I'd go down into the basement. I had my own corner in the basement with a little table that I'd set up, and I'd go down there, get out the way, and I'd paint my models. And she'd ask me, "Oh, I've seen these down there. They're really cool. What's the story behind those?" And I said, "Oh, I can't tell you that." And the girl at the time was like, "Yeah, you can't tell you that. He'll be here forever." And she pressed, and eventually I told her, basically, not too in depth, but I told her what the Imperium was and who the Space Marines were, right? Bear in mind, this family is devoutly Jewish. So, anything that resembles the Imperium, they were like, "Oh, it's happening again!" That kind of a thing. But and yeah, she was a bit alarmed, and I said, No, calm down. It's fine. It's all good. It's a satire. It's a satire of a setting. It's not real. The people who do this, they know how derpy it is, and they love it. They love how derpy it is. Even though the stories in it are really cool, and about brothers and fathers, and they're really good, life lessons are in 40k, And that's even before you get towards the building your army, learning arithmetic, learning teamwork, things like that, artistic skills, creative skills that are invaluable in life, absolutely invaluable. The amount of people I know who've earned a good career, not just by the skills 40k has given them, but simply being in 40k. Anyway, I wander around, but have you guys ever come across that? Let me know. Anyway, moving on. For some quick background, I'm an active duty US Marine. Thank you for your service. You guys kick ass. And I play a slightly homebrewed version of 40k 5th edition. Mostly just extra war gear options. I quite dislike 10th edition, but I'll keep it at that before I type up a not so epic 40k rant about my gripes with the game so far. This was a game that I played with my buddy in the barracks not too long ago. If you have tea with you or any other beverage, now would be a good time to do it so you can get through the story smoothly. I'll be alright for now. It was my Dark Angels against his Orcs, and we were playing a 1000 point game. I wanted to give the Battle Mission supplement a shot, since we had played pretty much nothing but Annihilation from the core rulebook up until that point. We played the mission All Round Defense, which consists of Space Marines needing to hold an objective point until the game ended. Per the rules, he elected to not deploy any units and keep everything in reserve, resulting in turn 1 being a moving of my Marines and nothing more. Slowly, his army gets on the board and gets over to mine, snatching them up into melee combat, and the dice rolls quickly turn against me, allowing the game to move further and further into his favour. Eventually, turn 5 arrives, and my army has been cut down by the horde of green melee savants. However, the only model in the presence of the central objective was my Tech Marine, if I remember correctly. So, come the end of his decisions for turn 5, and we rolled to see if the game continues. I rolled a 1 or 2, meaning the game ended then and there. Meaning I technically won. However, I too am not fond of the mentality, technically the rules said this so I win, and a quick look at the board would show maybe 3 or 4 Marines alive, sporadically, and a whole gaggle load of Orcs everywhere, meaning I would have most likely been killed untabled if I hadn't rolled a game ender of a result. Originally, I had looked at that game specifically with a feeling that the win was kind of cheap and that this wasn't really a win, but looking back, I've thought another way of looking at it. Warhammer at its core is a narrative wargame, and I, genius that I am, had forgotten this. It was never about the objectives or the turns. It was about an outnumbered force of Dark Angels holding the line so that reinforcements could arrive to reclaim the area or rescue them. I think it was quite goofy for me to process it as anything else, given the whole situation I got into 5th, and I wanted a more narrative and flavourful game to play. Also, wanted to try template and scatter dice. Worth it, by the way. Dropping those was a terrible decision, and I can't believe I never got to experience them when I was younger. I got into 40k at 8th edition. I think you say that about templates because, again, you weren't there. Templates could be really time-consuming. Dude, if you came across a stickler and he had templates, you were going to be there for hours as he measured and remeasured and told you that he was hitting things that he couldn't hit. You know, all of the time they would do that. They would like, oh yeah, I hit this thing. It's like, how? That's not where it scatters, you know. Scatter templates were annoying. I agree they were neat when they worked. If they worked because you're playing with friends and you're having a good time, brilliant. But if you're playing against people you don't really know, or you get that one guy who just has to suck the fun out of it, you know, templates ground the game to a halt, which is why I think they got rid of them. I think at the end of the day, more Warhammer players need to do as you've suggested and stop letting Games Workshop interfere with their hobby. To let Games Workshop make all of the rules decisions, in my opinion, is equivalent to never bothering to put salt on your food because you think the cook would know to make the food to your liking. Besides 5th edition, books are fairly easy to come by in scanned PDF format, and a quick hunt on eBay can net you most physical books that you might want. Ironically, in my opinion, Warhammer 5th edition was more balanced, ignoring Grey Knights and maybe Ultramarines, which was also when balanced wasn't being so aggressively pursued. I think that's all there is in my story. Thanks for letting me have a platform to yap on. Have a great day. Alright, no problem. And yeah, I will show your Dark Angels here because they are pretty cool. First of all, do you guys do that with your food? You know when you just said there, oh, I salt my food before... Because I was taught by my mother, right? If you go around to somebody's house and immediately start salting food and seasoning food as soon as you get it, unless it's something that's made to do that, it's kind of rude. Am I crazy? Or is she crazy? I don't know. Lovely looking models, though. But yes, I've just been brought up to say, yeah, it's not so much that, oh, the chef knows what he's doing. You know, no. It's simply that if you're in somebody's house, it's kind of rude to just assume they cooked it wrong. That's the point. I think that's the issue. You want to try, if somebody's... I'm really of the opinion that the most loving, cool thing somebody can do for you, cool as real, by the way, is make you a meal. Yeah? It's making you a meal. I think that's one of the most lovely things somebody can do for you. And if your response to that is to just assume that they've got it wrong for your little palate, and start seasoning it without even, a buy or leave. Now, this picture I really like. Dude, these are cool. Well done, man. Very nicely painted Dark Angels. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know about... I disagree with some of this, right? I do disagree with some of it. I agree, like, don't let Games Workshop interfere with your hobby. Get that. Yeah, with you on that one. But, again, I think a lot of this is you not really being around to see how not balanced some of the old versions were of the game in a bad way, right? There were some things in 7th edition and in 6th edition that were beyond the pale and were just there to get Games Workshop to sell more models that they weren't already selling, right? Formations in 7th being one big, big thing where I love the way you've done the bolters, by the way. Very well done. And the Hellblaster there. Games Workshop have always made these decisions. The old editions weren't some paradise where everybody got along and everybody played Kumbaya all the time. No, it wasn't like that at all. We had really, really, really bad editions and really, really, really bad rules from time to time. Games Workshop have never been very good at writing wargame rules. It just is what it is. I think the original, when they lost Rick Priestley and guys like that, the games kind of, edged away from being fun, and became unbalanced in a bad way. When I say balance isn't that important, I mean it, right? I honestly don't think it is important. But it's only not important when you've got talented game writers. When you've got your Rick Priestleys and you guys like that who are writing games that are fun, right? They're balanced mostly, but they're fun, first and foremost. So I honestly do think that balance is not important if you've got talented game writers who make the game fun for everybody playing the game. Then balance doesn't matter a jot. But if you're approaching balance as this be-all and end-all all of the time, then yeah, your game's going to suck, as 10th edition, in my opinion, quite clearly does at the moment, unfortunately. Anyway, on to our next hobby nightmare. Alrighty. What shall we call you, since you don't want to be... We'll call you John Doe. Why not? We'll call you John. Alright. Dear North, this hobby nightmare happened a year or two before the lockdowns. Hopefully it's been long enough that nobody can track down the people involved, as the nightmare's family members are decent folks who are still active in the community. I live in a fairly crowded area in the United States. One of those areas in America where a bunch of small towns grew to the point where it is one massive suburban landscape. There are close to a dozen geek stores within a 25-mile radius of me. 40 kilometers for the rest of the world. Dude, you're lucky. You are lucky. All those stores. For several years before this incident, the 40k community was strong. Lockdowns kinda killed that. There was a yearly escalation league with prizes for sportsmanship and hobbying. People were paired to fight based on their wins. Other than that, having the most wins didn't reward much other than bragging rights. As the years rolled on, the people who ran the leagues had less hobby time, and so others who had participated in previous events decided to take up the mantle and run the league themselves, putting flyers out of in the various local game stores to bring in as many new players as we could. Other than the usual rules, disputes and personality conflicts, things always seem to go amazingly well. Since it's Hobby Nightmares, I'm assuming that's not going to go on for much longer. A year or two before lockdowns, I decided to try my hand at running the yearly league. A lot of the old beards volunteered to assist me. We decided to try and recruit some of the game stores to be directly involved in the league. Driving over to each one, talking to the owners and dropping off flyers. The stores that wanted to be involved were set up as separate planets for the league's lore. We wrote a location description for each planet/store, and even had a minor special rule players could use should they choose to do so when playing at that store. That's a really good idea. Like, the creativity of 40k players never ceases to amaze me. Like, that's a really good idea. Using the store's available tables and terrain as inspiration for the planets that they were going to be on. We even added a faction control rank to every store, So the more a faction played there, the higher their rank would be, and we would incorporate that into the league's overarching story. The idea was also to give the players some encouragement to play at other stores and give them some story ideas for their armies, since players would in the community. Since players would what? Sorry. Since players would possibly be travelling away for their games and might not be playing in their usually frequented store. In previous leagues, players were encouraged to write and share their army story as they progressed through the campaign, and we wanted to keep that going. Though some people were so comfortable with the other players in the community that inviting people over to their homes to play wasn't uncommon in these leagues. Alrighty, well you could just do a counts as, couldn't you? Like this counts as our nearest store, you know, that kind of a thing. That'd work. Things started off great. We had 30 plus people sign up to the league, which, as we all know, means about 16 to 20 people would actually make it to the end of the league. We planned on the league going for 14 weeks. 7 paired rounds, 2 weeks to get your game in, pairing based on wins and losses, with a large apocalypse game planned for the end of the league. The store with the most space offered to host it, and even got us additional prize support to give away to the apocalypse participants. For the first 6 weeks, things were going great. Only a few rules disputes, but nothing that caused people to throw fits. One evening, I get a phone call from one of the old beards, telling me I need to come immediately to join a group phone call to discuss one of the league's participants. Let's call this participant Jeffrey. One of Jeffrey's brothers, let's call him Bob, who was also in the league, had called us to share some news regarding Jeffrey. Bob had just gotten the news that Jeffrey had been arrested, and he would be in police custody for a long time. Apparently, Jeffrey had been caught trying to lure a kid from one of the game stores into his van or vehicle. Jeffrey was active in the Pokemon card game scene, and after one of the Pokemon games nights, he had decided to do this. The police had told Bob that there were likely other victims too who were about to come forwards. Note, Bob did not live with Jeffrey, they were a few towns apart. Bob stated that they were estranged and only saw each other infrequently at games nights. Bob also stated he had no idea his brother might do something like this. I don't buy that at all. Right? I don't buy it. Give me a sec. I don't buy that, my dudes. Now, I buy your story. Like, I buy the Hobby Nightmare. I'm not saying that. I mean, you can't be in such close proximity to somebody and not see something off. Do you know what I mean? It just, if you know somebody, even if you're estranged for a little bit, dude, it's your brother. You know him, right? You know that's in his locker, right? Whenever somebody says to me, I had no idea my dad was capable of doing something like that. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. Like, don't... And again, there must be times when it's true. Like, they had no idea because the other person's a really pathological liar and is really good at covering their tracks. But most people aren't. Most people aren't criminal masterminds. Alright? They're just not. And so most of the time when people say to me, I had no idea this was going on, I'm like, yeah, you did. You just looked the other way. It was easier to look the other way. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. That's just how I feel when it comes to these things. Me and the old beards were horrified. We had allowed anybody to join the league as long as they could travel to meet opponents. We knew a few of the new players were teenagers. I immediately checked the record of round pairings to see who we had scheduled to play Jeffrey so far, and thankfully, each of his opponents were adults. Dude, even if they weren't, that's not your responsibility. Alright? You can't do background checks on people going to a bloody 40k tournament. Like, what are you supposed to do? Okay? You remain vigilant, and you look out for warning signs. And when there are warning signs, watch that person closely and don't pair them with anybody underage. That's all you can do. And if you've seen nothing, because you've known this Jeffrey for 2 seconds, if you've seen nothing in that 2 seconds, what are you supposed to do? Right? Family, I don't absolve of responsibility, but having just met this guy, dude, you're not responsible for this. Even if things did go down that weren't good. It wouldn't have been your fault, alright? Now, if he was obviously a weirdo, and you'd let him come to your store or come to your tournament, and paired him with people who are underage, then yes, some responsibility would have fallen on you. But in this situation, no, dude, you're all good, alright? I took a small degree of comfort knowing that we had taken an effort to encourage players to play in stores that would have had staff and other customers around, and not to play in people's homes. The next day, I reached out to Jeffrey's opponents to see if they had noticed anything or had brought their kids with them. Thankfully, nobody had brought their kids to their scheduled games, and no strange incidents had occurred that they had noticed. 2 days after the group phone call, Jeffrey's face is on the local news, with some information about his various crimes. Word can travel fast in our small communities, but we heard no more about Jeffrey within our local 40k community. It seems that the players in the 40k community were not his main interest, and thankfully there didn't appear to be any more victims than those who were discovered right away. I ran a few more leagues after this one, changing the rule to require everybody participating to be an adult, and all games had to be played in store and not in anybody's home. To this day, I get a pit in my stomach any time I think about the first league I ran. Cheers, JD. Wow. I'm really sorry that was... There's nothing worse than a really cool hobby moment or something that you're getting into being tarnished. You know, with something that gets to you. Man, I know how you feel, dude. I know how you feel. Absolutely. Sorry about that, dude. But, hey, you did the right thing. And you're taking precautions now. And this isn't to say that... We get this a lot on Hobby Nightmares, is that, you know, oh, 40k, you know, you must get loads of nightmares about diddlers. No, I don't. I hardly... No, this is the first one in... It's got to be years, right? First one in years that we've had that's been like this. You know, I came across it a few times working with Games Workshop and working in my own store simply because, you know, you are exposed to more people than a normal hobbyist would be, right? So it's by law of averages. You're going to come across more people who are of that sick persuasion. You know, you get a vertical slice of the hobby when you work in a hobby store. You see everybody, you know. But only when you leave that hobby store do you realise how normal 99.99% of the people in this hobby actually are. Even the weird ones. They're just weird, normal weirdos, dude. You know what I mean? Normal nerds. Standard nerds. Anyway, moving on. This is from Ian. And he says, "Hello, mate. Hope life is being reasonable to you." Yeah, it's going well. Cheers, man. Ian here. I'm not sure if this is really a hobby nightmare, but more of an inquiry and discussion and see where it goes. I'm 36, UK ex-armed forces. Thank you very much for your service, sir. Thank you very much. Started the hobby, end of 2nd edition, start of 3rd. I love the Tanist, first and only. Black Templars, Grey Knights, Space Wolves, Demons, and Tyranids. Dude, you get around. You get around. You just love all of it. I've been binging your vids recently, and what grabs my focus the most is your attitude towards how the game should be played from your perspective. I share the same attitude of narrative and fun over sweaty gamer hyperbalanced esports crap. A game should tell a story, and a battle should be an emotional rollercoaster with epic and unforgettable moments throughout. Mostly due to things exploding or bad rolls leaving underdogs alive after a close combat fight, like my 8 guardsmen killing a broodlord in close combat and surviving, that sort of thing. Yeah, I agree. I will also say that there are places for sweaty tournament play, i.e. tournaments. You know, go figure. Absolutely, that there are places you can go play for blood. And even in those places, you will have a lot of really fun games. You know, you just got to know what you're getting into. There's a space for both, is what I'm saying. 40k doesn't need to be one or the other. I prefer narrative-style games. You know, rolling dice with my mates. But you can play for blood if you want. What saddens me is that we are losing 40k in this regard. We are losing these feelings. The game has become stale and emotionless for me. Even worse, for me personally, I used to be able to rely on these feelings to bring me up when I was feeling down or in a bad place. Win or lose, a game would always leave us walking away with a smile, and those times for me are gone. Games Workshop has gone downhill so much over the years, constantly dropping the ball with lore, rules, models, and the way they treat their fans. Look at 8th to 9th through COVID. That's another rant though. So where can I turn? It's like everything is being watered down or infected by modern politics. I went to go to Battletech and the situation over there is even worse. BattleTech players, is it? I don't know. I don't know. I have, however, found a couple of games I love with good companies behind them recently. For example, Dystopian Wars and Armored Clash by Warcradle Studios and Victory at Sea by Warlord Games. Fantastic games and companies, but quite small in the hobby scene, so nobody in my area plays them. I'm at rock bottom at this point. The hobby itself is the nightmare. The popular games I have no interest in playing, and the games I do play, are only played by me. After all of this frustration and despair, it dawned on me, why don't I just create my own? My own universe, my own tabletop game. It's genius. It may never be successful or any good, but who cares? It sounds like a fun adventure. Oh, my sweet summer child. Oh, I love it when people who don't normally write go, I'll create my own. I'll write my own RPG. I'll write my own tabletop war game. Oh... It ain't that easy, son. It ain't that easy. I wish you all the best, though. I really do. So for the last 8 months, I have focused all the energy I had from hobbying into creating something completely new. I have managed to turn what was a nightmare of hobbying into something positive that I can focus on and give myself some purpose. I've never been happier. Dude, that's brilliant. It just goes to show that the hobby is what we make of it and not based on what any company says to us. I've learned so much with this project. It feels like it will never have an end, and nobody can screw it up for me. I have total control over my own happiness, and not only that, I take joy in seeing other people enjoy it, and seeing the spark of interest, and wonder in people's eyes when I tell them about it. Dude, that's... Dude, you've hit the lottery here. You've literally gone, fine, I'll make it myself, and I've made your own hobby. My game is currently under production. Artwork is being created for sculpts and rules are being playtested for depth and fun as a priority. I can't wait to bring my creation to life. Sorry if this isn't the juicy nightmare of lies, cheating, toxic players or girls breaking up friends groups, etc. But for me, the last few years have been an absolute sodding nightmare. The only way out of this was to create my own path for my mental health, well-being and happiness. Thanks for your videos as they really resonated with me. It was exactly what I needed to hear and when I needed to hear it. Cheers. Ian. Well, cheers, mate. Yeah, if any of you are losing your hobby, maybe take a leaf out of Ian's book here. I've said it many times. Create it yourself, right? It's not easy. It's not easy. Like, creating your own war game ain't easy. RPGs, even less easy, right? But they are it's an incredibly rewarding experience if there's nothing out there that you quite like. Remember why Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings? It wasn't because he wanted to write a book. It's because there were no books out there that were what he wanted to read, right? Based on the legends that he taught at Oxford and linguistic things like that. So he did it himself. He wrote it himself, and he had a lot of fun doing it, right? I presume so anyway, because he wrote loads of them, so there you go. And it became The Lord of the Rings, right? Do it yourself. If you're not finding what you want out there, go and make it. Absolutely. That is... And even if you never make any money from it, dude, that's not the point. You make it for you. You make it for your own enjoyment and your own expression. There is nothing more purging than being able to sit down and really write something that sings to you, man. Dude, there's no feeling like it. Give it a go. Next time you're feeling down, give it a go. Try and create something. And yes, your first one will be bad. Unavoidable. Your first one will be bad. That's how you get better. Alright? Anyway, love you all long time. I will speak to you very, very, very soon for some more hobby rantage and 40k or any hobby nightmares. I'll see you soon. Alright? Love you all long time. Bye now.